Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of Comic Book Workshop. Today I'm looking at Philippe Druillet. This guy is a French comic artist. His stuff is very similar to some of the artists that I've looked at before, um, in that his work is very psychedelic, right? Like that's the kind of stuff it is that I like. I like the comic book art that just goes completely insane. And so this might be similar to the Felipe Caza video that I did a couple weeks back, where I'm showing you this guy's work, but it may be more just inspiration rather than necessarily the problem solving that I've emphasized on some of the other tutorials. What I find interesting about this guy's work is that he just goes all out with his comic book work, and he makes a lot of the pages look a lot like you could have them as an original piece of art, such as the one it is that we're looking at here. That's something I talk a lot about on this tutorial series, is this idea that the comic book artist is really tasked with two things. They need to be able to tell a story, but they also need to be able to make the illustrations captivating. And the comic book artist wants to, take a page and actually make it to where you could sell that individual page to somebody who was a collector, but then it also is actually moving the story along. A lot of the stuff it is that I have is not as much sequential stuff as much as his full page work. But we're going to go ahead and dig into it. And I'm going to share with you what it is that I find really inspiring about his work. For one thing, I love the composition of this. I've talked about this in my illustration tutorials. If you pull the image back and you can still read it from a distance, the way it is that I'm zooming out of it right now, then that tells you that that is effective communication. Because even though I have no idea what's going on here, there is an organization with the shapes and the colors and the values of the shapes that it makes it very easily readable, which naturally draws my eye towards it because our eye is naturally drawn towards things that have this high level of design, right? Like it's not just necessarily art, it could be anything. You look at, like, say, a flower, for example. The reason why a flower is so captivating to our eyes is because there is a sense of design in the flower itself, right? And it's funny I say that because actually, when I look at it from far away, it almost looks like an eye. If I was to just take a big black and go like this and like this, it almost looks like an eye, right? The way that he has it situated. And so now I zoom in here, and there's a couple of different things it is that I notice. He has this nice kind of curving line that goes up here, and then it takes us straight to this area, right? And so this is our focal point, and he's pointing us at the focal point by going like this through the body. We also see it here, right? And you could say the gesture of this figure, but also, um, it's clear that our focal point will be here, and it'll be connected to this because everything else is anchored around it, right? We have this big white shape surrounded by red, but then we also have essentially these curves that are all pointing us into one direction, which is like this, right? And it's creating this kind of like this, it's basically creating this space that this can sit in, right? Okay. So we'll go ahead and we'll move on from this one. But this is a good example of what I'm talking about. And there is some story going on here. But this is obviously, an epic moment in the story. It looks like somebody is breaking away, um, like breaking away from some demon from hell and is ascending into heaven, or ascending some astral plane. I talk a lot about that in some of the other analysis it is that I've done, I don't just look at it in terms of technique. You know, the technique has to serve the idea. And so if the idea is that this person is going through this kind of spiritual transformation and is ascending to a higher plane of existence, then it's a very beautifully illustrated concept because you have him breaking out of this almost cocoon like red bubble with these demons reaching up and trying to pull him back down. Uh, and then you have what looks like these angelic figures that are coming in through the side, right? And a lot of the stuff, it's just the raw creativity reminds me of like artists like Clive Barker. You know, I'm a huge fan of Clive Barker. He's also somebody that I recommend looking at for inspiration. Um, you know, so like these pyramids, I mean these pillars right here are they're freaking awesome, right? I mean, he puts so much design in the world, and I think so much of that is a part of what makes his art so good, right? You know, if you compare this to, you know, some sort of generic science fiction or, you know, uh, some city landscape or something like that, this looks very psychedelic. It looks very strange, really interesting designs for his environments, and I think he really capitalizes on that idea of drawing these environments, drawing these spaces. I mean, these almost feel like, you know, levels for a video game or something. This one is really cool. It's in French, so I don't know what it is that it's saying, but there's enough visual storytelling that I can see that something is breaking out up here. The image itself might be a little bit pixelated, but something is breaking out or exploding. Something is getting hit, obviously, and everything is falling down towards the ground. And you could learn a lot about perspective just by tracing out these types of shapes and trying to see how he orients things in the environment, right? Lots of ornamentation. He's looking at a lot of different references and stuff like that. Very, very beautiful stuff. Yeah, some of these images might be a little bit pixelated, so I do apologize for that. He, he has these full-blown illustrations like this that are so freaking cool, and it goes back to what I've talked about before in my previous talks, which is that there's a lot of symmetry going on here, but there's also a lot of asymmetry, right? So the setup is very similar, is very much the same, but then on this side, and this side, these shapes are all different, right? And there's subtle differences in the way that he drew either side. You know, the details on the back here, the details here, they're a little bit different. So Elric is the Michael Moore story that inspired The Witcher, I think. I think it was a big inspiration for The Witcher, but a lot of different guys from the 60s and 70s, I think they either did covers or they did adaptations of Elric. It's like a dark fantasy story. And yeah, I wanted to share this just because look at the design and the detail. And to me, this is what makes his work so inspiring to me, right? Is that he has so much design in the stuff it is that he's doing. I mean, it seems almost like he must be using some different technique to come up with these designs because I really wonder how he came up with these just with pen and ink. Maybe he did, but or maybe he's using some sort of technique and kind of discovering these different patterns. But the end result is beautiful and it's uniquely his. And I think this is what happens whenever you're a comic artist who really pushes yourself to learn environments and learn character design and learn the different aspects of design and how they help communicate the story, right? Because the story itself, your job is to communicate a story when you're making comics. Um, but you also want to explore these other areas that are related to storytelling, such as the environment design. How does that help tell the story? How does the character design, how does the ornamentation of uh, this whole head thing, this whole headdress, how does that help tell the story? It tells us something about the character, and it also intrigues us and pulls us into the story because we immediately start thinking like, what are these guys down here, right? So there's a whole story that's being told here, um, that's being suggested at, and it intrigues people. It makes people want to dive deeper into your world. Yeah, so his designs, his the way that he draws things, I think it's really unique, you know. And I guess in some ways, some people might look at some of the stuff that he does and say that it's amateurish, but I really enjoy it. You know, I mean, like there's something about the perspective going on with with these two that don't make no sense. You know, maybe this is like a very early version of his. Um, I have no idea. Or if it's if it's not his, then I apologize. I grabbed these off of Yandex, and yeah, so sometimes I end up grabbing images that aren't his. But you know, like if you just compare this design of this robot here, this alien robot, compared to the designs it is that you see in today, I mean, to me, this is just so much more creative and so much more interesting. You know, there's almost a sense that um, it couldn't function. You know it couldn't function, and he designed it with that in mind. And it doesn't seem to matter to him, right? Like he just wanted to draw this crazy looking thing, right? It looks like some sort of an insect more than a robot. I think this is his Twitter handle picture or something. But yeah, I thought that was really cool because he's got the Matrix writing back here, and this dude's definitely broken out of the Matrix for sure. Yeah, so I think yeah, this is definitely another one of his. Again, we see like this level of detail and this level of craftsmanship on so many different ways. You know, we have the obvious allusions to MC Escher, right? With these staircases all going in these different directions and whatnot. And so he's paying homage to MC Escher with this idea. But I think that I think it works in a lot of different ways, um, because it serves his idea so well, right? The idea that he's trying to portray here, and then he takes it to the next level by adding these different uh, graphic design like elements to his work. I think that's another really interesting aspect of it that makes his work feel like it could be a poster. It could be a print that could be sold or given to someone as an original. Again, just like super psychedelic stuff. Like, what is it that's going on here? It's like that we have this multi-armed figure back here, and it seems to be populating the whole universe with all these different versions of itself. So yeah, we do have some sequential stuff, very basic of these characters talking with one another. And then, of course, we have this graphic design type element that comes in down here at the bottom and also at the top, right? So I think we got one more here, and we'll go ahead and close it out. Yeah, so this guy, I wish I had gotten some better resolution images for you guys. I apologize for that. But look him up. I've got links in the description box below to check his workout. Whatever links I found of him, his social media or whatever, as usual, I put it in the description box below. But yeah, this guy, he's super creative and he's totally worth looking into. So if you're interested in checking his workout, check it out below. If you'd like to support what I do here on the channel, feel free to subscribe or check out my Patreon or my online store. I have a free comic available for download, as well as some other stuff coming up. And you can keep up to date by checking out my daily streams and whatnot. Anyways, guys, thank you so much and take care.